So we've talked on the YouTube channel about Saints Row already, and I wanted to talk about where is Saints Row 5 at this point, guys, because a lot of you, I'm sure, are very excited about the continuation of this franchise. So let's talk about it. In an article, guys, that was written by Robert Adams of Game Revolution, he says Saints Row 5 is coming, but it needs to go back to its roots. With the reveal of Saints Row 4 Nintendo Switch release, we mustn't forget that Saints Row 5 is also on the way. Volition has been hard at work creating the next great adventure of the Third Street Saints, but they have to be careful. Saints Row 5 must not repeat the mistakes of the games that came before it. Now, what made Saints Row great? At a casual glance, the Saints Row games look very similar to Grand Theft Auto. They do have a lot in common after all. Both franchises have you heading up a criminal empire. Both use liberal applications of violence as the solution to most problems. Both have their moments of drama and hilarity. It was, however, the differences that really highlighted the appeal of Saints Row and the anticipation for Saints Row 5. While Grand Theft Auto was mostly serious, Saints Row was mostly funny. The various GTA protagonists were largely grounded in reality, but the boss of the Third Street Saints powerbombed gang leaders into a garbage truck and promoted a branded energy drink. They're similar games, but different enough that each has its own unique appeal. And I agree with this 100%. They're very different. More, Grand Theft Auto is a little bit more serious, whereas Saints Row is a little bit goofier. What I will say, though, guys, is that I do think that Saints Row needs to, going back here to what he was saying before, was that you can't make the same mistakes the other games made. And I agree with that to a degree. I think the first Saints Row games, the first three, were pretty good, and well put together. Now, Saints Row 4 and Saints Row Get Out of Hell, which was the expansion for Saints Row 4, I think obviously you want to kind of steer the ship back in the right direction with kind of going in line with those other first three games. Now, Grand Theft Auto has been wishy-washy with the comedy with some people, myself included, marking GTA 4 as a low point in the franchise for seemingly forgetting about the humor of the previous games. Saints Row has made a similar mistake, although this one was done from the other direction. There have always been silly side missions in games of this sort, but Saints Row really takes the cake. As an example, Saints Row 2 has you driving around town with a septic truck and literally shooting sewage at your enemies with an effort to cause property damage. That's about as lowbrow as comedy gets, but it's also a boatload of fun. So I agree with that, guys. I mean, it's goofier. It's way goofier than, say, GTA. It just is. To start, Saints Row 4 was really supposed to be a piece of DLC for the third game. The bankruptcy of THQ in the early 2010s led to an acquisition and a change of plans, stretching out a DLC's worth of content into a full game. It was not well thought out. Get through roughly 10% of the game's story, and the superpowers have essentially rendered vehicles and guns useless. You can never step into a car again and not be any worse for wear. Why even bother? It's like they forgot what kind of game this was supposed to be. And then a similar thing happened with Get Out of Hell. Kinzie and Johnny Gat quite literally go to hell and take on magical powers, once again rendering firearms and vehicles essentially useless. Another Steelport reskin of sorts stretches out a DLC's worth of content into a full game. So look, Get Out of Hell was they're far-fetched, guys. Obviously, Saints Row has been far-fetched, but they went to a whole new level with Get Out of Hell, and I really think they need to kind of bring it back, reel everything a little bit more back in with Saints Row 5, in my opinion, because obviously at this point, guys, Saints Row 5 is on its way, and it's probably pretty deep in development at this point. We'll probably get, a trailer at some point, whether it be 2020 or 2021. Stepping back, I noticed the trend of the franchise's change in tone and wanted to take a look at Saints Row 2 to see just how far it had come. Sure, the PC port is a bit of a disaster, but it ran well enough that I was able to experience what many consider to be the pinnacle of the franchise. There's plenty of silly and crazy moments, but those weren't the main focus of the franchise. They're not aliens blowing up the earth. You're not traveling through time and meeting historical figures. You're a gang leader fighting for control of a city, wearing stylish clothes and driving souped-up cars. The dramatic aspects of Saints Row weren't the only things lost over the years. Lots of little features disappeared, and I sure hope they return in Saints Row 5. One of the criticisms I've seen voiced most often is the customization. Saints Row 2 had a stupidly complex customization system that let you wear several layers of clothing, allowing for the creation of a very unique character. The amount of variety available to the player was frankly insane. Saints Row 3 had a brand new engine, and the collapse of the company's publisher THQ likely resulted in some cutbacks. The customization options improved in some areas but got worse in others. You just had fewer options for decking out your character, and I hope that does come back in Saints Row 5, where you're able to, of course, soup out your character in a variety of different ways. That's what really made Saints Row very unique. Saints Row 5 will likely be another big step for the adventures of the Third Street Saints. Unlike the jump from Saints Row 2 to Saints Row 3, Volition will hopefully not have to deal with their publisher going bankrupt. The success of the previous games will hopefully mean that the devs can execute and create a vision without having to worry about cutting corners in the areas that made Saints Row great. My big concern is the effect that the more out there games are going to have on the future of Saints Row 5. Are we going to get another traditional gangster story with a lot of silly humor and the occasional crazy side mission? Or are we going to be fighting alien lizard people on Jupiter? I hope Volition takes a good look at what they've made over the years and sees how they've strayed so far from where they've first started. I'm looking forward to more silliness in Saints Row 5. So look, as someone who really enjoyed at least the first few games in this franchise, I'd like to see Volition kind of stick to what worked in the past, right? I mean, some silliness is fine and all of that. I wouldn't mind actually them taking things a little bit more seriously this time around, kind of taking a little bit more of a serious approach, even though we still want that humor and that silliness in the game. But I think, to a degree, I think we also want to see things a little bit more grounded, not so unrealistic in a variety of different ways. But with that being said, guys, I want to hear from all of you. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comment section below. What is it that you want to see in Saints Row 5 the most? For me, it comes down to having some silliness, but maybe a little bit more seriousness at the same time. Because, man, it got so far off track with Saints Row Gat Out of Hell. That's what I want to see. I also want to see, obviously, multiplayer modes, co-op modes, and of course a full fleshed out main story. Make it a full package that we all can just continue coming back to. Have it on the next generation of consoles. I think you got yourself a pretty solid game that's in the works here, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. And I'll keep all of you guys up to date as further information comes out. But like I said, let me know what you guys want to see in the title, Saints Row 5, if that's what it's going to be called. And for more Saints Row 5 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.